This is the Honda EU7000IS 7000W Inverter Portable Backup Generator. After spending some time with it, I thought it might be helpful to share what I've noticed so far. At a basic level, this is a portable inverter generator meant for people who need serious backup power, but don't want the usual downsides that come with old-school generators, like rough power output, loud noise, and annoying starting routines. I've used it in two main ways: as home backup power during an outage, and as a portable power source when I needed reliable electricity away from the house. If you're trying to keep essentials running, like refrigeration, lights, network gear, a furnace blower, some kitchen appliances, and possibly a well pump or a few higher draw tools depending on your setup, this type of generator makes a lot of sense. What makes it different in day-to-day use is how controlled it feels compared with a conventional open-frame generator. It doesn't behave like a machine that's either screaming at full RPM or off. With the inverter setup, it can calm down when the load is light, and then ramp up when something big kicks on. That matters because real households don't pull a steady load. Your fridge cycles, your microwave runs for 5 minutes, your sump pump runs for 20 seconds, and then nothing happens for a while. With this unit, I can hear it react to that kind of reality, instead of just blasting at one speed the whole time. Physically, it's a big enclosed box on wheels, and the first thing I noticed is the weight. You're not casually picking this up and moving it around. I can roll it by myself on flat ground, but if the ground is soft, uneven, or has gravel, I feel that weight immediately. The wheels work, but they're not the kind of wheels that float over grass or broken terrain. I've had to adjust how I move it. I plan my path, I avoid tight turns on slopes, and I don't pretend I'm going to drag it across a muddy yard without paying for it later. The handles help, and the balance is decent once you tilt it back onto the wheels, but it still takes effort. Build-wise, it feels like it's meant to live outside occasionally and not fall apart. The outer shell is plastic, but it doesn't feel flimsy. The important stuff feels protected, and I like that everything is enclosed because it keeps the sound down and also keeps random debris from getting into places it shouldn't. The control panel layout is straightforward. I don't have to learn it every time I come back to it, which matters when you're stressed during an outage. Setup and practice is mostly about being realistic and safe. I run it outside with clear space around it, and I pay attention to where the exhaust is going. If you've ever dealt with generators before, you already know people get casual about placement, and that's when bad things happen. This one has carbon monoxide monitoring built in, and I consider that a backup safety net, not an excuse to place it closer to the house. I still treat exhaust like exhaust. Starting is one of the areas where I think people will either love this unit or feel like, okay, this is what I expected at this level. The electric start is the way I start it almost every time. I turn it on, hit the start, and it catches without me doing the little choke dance that a lot of carbureted units require. There is a recoil start as a fallback, which I'm glad exists, because batteries age and sometimes you discover that at the worst moment. I do think the battery area is a bit cramped if you ever need to access it. It's not something you'll mess with often, but when you do, it's not the most comfortable service job. Noise is the thing people ask about. And yes, it's noticeably quieter than the open-frame generators most people have heard. It's not silent. You still know it's running. What changes is the kind of sound and how aggressive it feels. From a short distance away, it turns into background noise rather than something that dominates the whole yard. When the load is light and the engine settles down, that's when it becomes easiest to live with. If you're using this in a neighborhood during an outage, that matters. If you're using it for an RV situation, it also matters, because you're often around other people, and nobody wants to be the loud generator person. My real-world use at home was pretty typical outage stuff. I ran a refrigerator, a chest freezer, lights in a few rooms, internet equipment, and then rotated in higher draw items as needed. The main thing I watched was behavior during cycling loads. When the fridge compressor kicks on, some generators stumble, or you can hear them bog and then recover. On this unit, the transition felt controlled. I also used it with more sensitive electronics and didn't notice the little annoyances you sometimes get on rougher power, like buzzing audio or power bricks getting warmer than usual. That's the kind of detail I care about because it's not a feature in a vacuum. It's the difference between feeling comfortable plugging in your normal stuff versus treating the generator like it can only run dumb loads. Fuel use depends heavily on what you're running, but in my use, where the load is up and down instead of constant, it went a long time on a tank. Long enough that I wasn't stuck refueling constantly, And that's a practical safety thing. Refueling at night in bad weather is when people make mistakes. Anything that reduces how often you need to do that helps. I still follow the boring rules. Shut it down, let it cool, refuel carefully. It's slower, but it's how you avoid turning a power outage into a bigger problem. Day-to-day operation is easy once you get your routine. I check oil like I would with any engine that I expect to last. I keep the area around it clear. I don't block airflow, and I don't overload it. This generator gives you feedback through its display, and that's more useful than it sounds. I like being able to glance and get a sense of what's happening instead of guessing. The outlets also cover common situations, including a 120-240 volt option for home transfer setups. If you're planning to connect it to a house properly, I still think that's a job where you want the right transfer equipment and a proper plan. This generator can support that use, but the safe connection method is the part you shouldn't improvise. The Bluetooth and the Honda My Generator app were more helpful than I expected, mostly for monitoring and basic control when I'm not standing next to the unit. In real life, that means if it's raining and I'm trying to keep the generator in a good outdoor spot, I can check status without hovering over it. I can see load and keep an eye on runtime estimates. The range is not magic. Walls and distance can mess with it, so I treat it as a convenience feature. When it works, it saves steps. When it doesn't, I walk outside and use the panel like normal. Limitations are mostly the ones you'd expect once you've moved it around and lived with it. The weight is the ongoing one. If you're older, if you have stairs, or if you need to load it into a vehicle regularly, you're going to want a ramp and a plan. Another limitation is that it's still a gasoline engine, so fuel storage and maintenance are part of ownership. I'm careful about the fuel I use, and I don't let it sit forever without thinking about it. If you ignore that part, any generator will punish you later, and I don't see this one as an exception. I also think the service access in a few areas could be friendlier, especially if you ever need to deal with the battery. It's doable, just a little tight. Overall, my impression is that this is for someone who wants a generator that feels manageable during stressful situations. When the power goes out, I don't want another project. I want something that starts consistently, runs smoothly, doesn't sound like a construction site, and doesn't make me second-guess plugging in the stuff I actually care about. It's not the smallest unit, and it's not the easiest to move, but once it's in position and running, it behaves in a steady, predictable way, and that's what I end up valuing most. Please check the comments section for detailed information about the Honda EU7000IS 7000W Inverter portable backup generator.